Hi, welcome to part one. So the first step we're going to do here is we're going to take our physical drawing and turn it into clean, usable line art in Photoshop. So here's the image I'm going to be using. It's just a little fake logo I made using a Micron brush pen. So you can see this is on lined graph paper. It has a pencil sketch in the background that you can still see. So we're going to have to get rid of all of that. We're going to go from having this to having clean digital line art that's ready to be colored, and it's going to be easier than you might think. So if you have a scanner, you can scan your drawing, but for this I actually just used my phone camera to take a picture and then I emailed it to myself. A lot of phone cameras these days are really high quality. This is actually a great way to get your drawing into the digital space. The important thing to keep in mind when you're taking that photo is going to be lighting, bright and even. Those are the important things. So don't use a flash photo. That's going to be bright but not even. If possible, I recommend sunlight works really well, but if it's a rainy day out or if it's night, if you live in a bunker, whatever, just find the brightest, most evenly lit room that you can. It might seem kind of weird, but you could try using your bathroom. Bathrooms usually have kind of harsh, even white light, so that works well. While we're talking about image quality before we get into Photoshop, I do also recommend using an ink drawing for this process. Pencil will work. You can use pencil if you want, but it's going to give you sort of a rougher kind of quality to your lines. If that's what you're going for, that's totally fine. But generally speaking, you're probably going to want to go over your pencil lines with a pen or marker before you photograph your drawing, even if that's not as much what you're used to. Okay, so let's open up Photoshop Elements and get started. So, first off, let's double check that we are in expert mode. We don't want to be in quick, guided, or E-live. Don't worry if you are not actually an expert. It's more just that those modes are really for photo editing and not going to have the tools that we want. So, like I said, I took a photo on my phone and I emailed it to myself and I downloaded that image to my desktop. So we can just click File up here, Open, and then here it is on my desktop. There we go, Ray's logo.png. We're just going to open that. Don't worry if it's a JPEG, whatever kind of image, totally fine. Okay, cool. So here we are. Let's turn this into line art. For this, we're going to use the magic wand tool. If this is your first time in Photoshop, this bar over here on the left contains all of our tools. When you click on a tool, you get the tool options. So for instance, if we click on the brush tool here, there you go. You can see we have all the options to change the brush tool. We can change the size, opacity, whatever. We're not going to be using the brush tool today, though. So what we do want is the quick selection tool. So let's grab it here. And if you hover over a tool with your mouse, it's going to tell you what it's called. So that's going to be super useful. So click that. Great. And now we can see the tool options are the options for our quick selection tool. And we have access to the magic wand right here. It's the little star here. And you can see now that we've switched to that, the magic wand appears up here in our toolbox instead of the quick selection. So that's going to be handy for the next time we want to use it. So what we actually want to do here is we want to select all of the parts of our image that are black ink lines. The magic wand tool is going to be the perfect tool for doing that, but we need to make some adjustments first. So let's start by adjusting the tolerance here. I like to set that to 70. We'll talk a little bit more about what that means later on. But next we want to uncheck this box that says contiguous. You probably already know what contiguous means, but quick review. Let me just pull open a file for that. Here's two red blobs. If I have my magic wand set to contiguous, here's what happens when I select one. So now I'm going to hit the escape key to deselect everything. That's going to be useful to remember. If you want to deselect everything, hit the escape key. But let's see what happens when I uncheck contiguous. And there we go. That makes sense, right? You can think of it this way, like California is part of the contiguous United States, right? But Alaska is not, because it's got a bunch of Canada in between, so it just means connected, basically. Okay, so tolerance is set to 70. Contiguous is not checked. Great. Now let's find the darkest part of the lines on our image. To make extra sure, I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to hit Command plus. That's Control plus if you're on a PC. And yeah, there we go. Okay, I'm going to find a really black part of my outline and I'm going to select it. And then great, so we can see that it selected all of the black lines in the image. I'm gonna now hit Command minus to zoom back out. And yes, so we can see, right, everything is selected that we wanted. The pencil lines are sort of grayish, right? And the graph paper lines are blue, so it didn't select those, which is perfect. That's exactly what we want. But here's where things get interesting. So to color in our image, we're gonna be using layers. Layers are really the bread and butter of Photoshop art. As a Photoshop artist, you are going to be using lots and lots of layers. So here it is. Let's click this button and up pops our layers. So that's right down here, the one that says layers, yeah. You can think of layers in Photoshop like a bunch of pieces of clear glass stacked on top of each other. The lower down ones are at the bottom, and the higher up ones are on top, just like you'd expect. So let's click and make a new layer. So we're gonna click this right here, and you see if I hover over that, it tells us what that tool does, create a new layer. So there it is. Okay, great, so here it is, a totally empty new layer called layer 1. Now I'm gonna go ahead and double click on that layer name and rename it. You can call yours whatever you want. I'm gonna call mine line, because this is where we're gonna put our line art. And if you wanna make a layer visible or invisible, just click this little eyeball icon right here, so you can see off, on, off, on, off, right? So you're gonna be doing that a lot. That's a really useful way to see what layer you're working with. So double check that our new layer is the one that's selected. You can select a layer just by clicking on it, right? So see now, background is selected, line is selected. Great. So what we wanna do is we wanna take all the parts of our image that are selected and fill them in with plain black. Luckily, this is pretty simple to do. We're just gonna grab the paint bucket tool over here. There it is. And bloop. We just click anywhere at all, doesn't matter where, and everything has been filled in black. So great, I'm gonna hit the escape key, which we remember is to deselect, and there we go. So if all you want is some nice, clean black line art, then we're finished here. But in the next video, I'm gonna show you how to add some color. Before we move on to that though, I just want to address what to do if you're looking at your image and it still looks messy. If your image is already looking good, go ahead and skip on to the next video and start coloring. Otherwise, let's take a look at some things that can happen. Okay, so you've scanned in your image, you've gone through the steps. What if your image now looks like this, right? Or what if it looks like this? See, it missed out the leaves of our pineapple here. So there's a couple things you can do. Let's start with this one here. So there's a lot of extra noise. If there's only a few of those, like on this layer, then that's okay. We can actually just grab the eraser tool over here. Eraser tool. You can change the size of that down here. Right, so in this case there wasn't too much, so I would just take the eraser tool and get rid of it, and great, that's fine. But if you're looking at something a little more like this, you are gonna not wanna have to go through that. That'd be a huge pain. So the main thing to do here is you can adjust the tolerance of the magic wand tool. More tolerant is gonna give you more black, less will give you less, right? So if we make it fully tolerant, it'll take anything, then it just selected the whole image, right? And if we take it fully zero tolerant, then it'll only select pixels that are pure, the exact color that you wanted, and that's not good either. So try experimenting. In this case, what I ended up finding was tolerance 40 was pretty good. I generally like to stay at 70 as a first try, but try experimenting with that if that's not working for you. There's also one more trick you can do if you want a really nice smooth line. You can select with your magic wand, there we go, and then you can go up into the menu up here, and you can click select, go down to modify, and select smooth. I recommend about 3 pixels if you're doing this. So there we go. And basically what that does is it just sort of smooths out your lines. So if we zoom in here on our pineapple, we can see here it is with no smoothing. See it's a little more jagged, and here's what it looks like with smoothing turned on. And remember, you do the smoothing there before you fill in the selection with the paint bucket, not after. You want to be careful with this one also, because we're actually altering your art here, and if you go too hard with this, then you can lose the sense of texture that really makes your drawing unique and your own, but definitely something worth experimenting with. So those tricks can be helpful, but at the end of the day, the best way to get clean line art is to make clean, dark lines when you're drawing, and to make sure you get a high-quality photo. Also, to be honest, don't use lined paper. I did it to show that it can be done, and if it's all you have, that's totally fine, but you know, blank, unlined paper is just going to make your life a little easier. Okay, so that's it for turning a physical drawing into clean digital line art. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video where we are going to go from this to this. See you then.